Hello, very good afternoon to all of you. I think we are here to discuss something which has been very, very topical right now over the last couple of months when we talk of the EV sector in the country, which is the battery fires and the regulations around it. And what a better way to discuss this than having some of the stalwarts of the Indian EV ecosystem on stage alongside me representing the two and the three-wheeler industry. Uh, as we all know, there are sort of many, many ways in which this problem can be tackled. One of those is doing things within the cell. So you could put retardants, you could use separators that stop, say, ion exchange if something goes outside the operating range. You could also look at measures around the BMS, which tries to isolate cells which are not operating as desired. There are also measures around using different kinds of chemistries. There's LTO, there's solid state, there are others, solid state still being in the lab stage, but at least LTO being there. Then there is also the talk about how more advanced cooling could be brought in. So liquid cooling, phase change materials, and things like that. And finally, there's also, could something be done to ensure that the user usage characteristics change, though that's going to be a tough ask given that we don't just talk about vehicle use but vehicle abuse in the country. So given all of that, there are multiple ways to address this, but some things have been done already as well, because it's not that every vehicle out there has caught fire. Some have, some haven't. That means there is also a difference in the way these have been engineered, and there's also a difference in the way the kind of components or the kind of batteries that have gone into the different vehicles. Right? So maybe we can start with you, Dr. Sharan. Your vehicles, as I said, in the three-wheeler segment, designed for extreme overloading. The guy would want it to do just about anything possible. That's what they've been doing with the ICE vehicles, and now they want a similar thing with, the EVs as well. And you've done a lot of things, like, I remember from some of our earlier conversations how you made a motor that is completely serviceable, despite the guy going to a ditch doing anything with the vehicle. And I assume similar things have been done on the battery side as well. So if you could share your perspective, up till now, what all has been done, and with the new regulations on the anvil, what more do you think is going in, and does it make a substantial difference?
Thanks, Ashim. So, yes, a lot has been done in batteries, and I think a lot still needs to be done. But I think it's a progression. So, first things first. I mean, I don't come from this domain, so I have the benefit of being able to say most things that others may not. See, ICE, if you look at fuel, you look at hydrogen, they're much more combustible, they're much more energy dense compared to lithium batteries. We've done a wonderful job in making sure that they are safe and secure. It has taken us a while, no doubt. Even today in the US, I was reading a statistic somewhere, I think 140 odd thousand vehicles every year catch fires without a collision, without an accident in the US alone. Now, that might be a very small fraction compared to the rest of the vehicles out there, but at the end of the day, 140,000 is 140,000 vehicles catching fire. They are stationary vehicles, they may be parked, they may be in parking lots, wherever. Fires do happen. I think the important thing is, are you warned enough in advance that life is not compromised? I think that is the biggest concern that this industry should cater to. I think that is where most of the work that we've done, or the vendors that we're working with, I think you have to look at it from three angles: cell quality, the manufacturing of the pack, and finally, very fine-grained BMS control. Cell quality depends on you. You decide your use case, and you decide which cell matches that use case. We don't make cells in India, they're imported. Cell manufacturing is in our hands. And I think, like you rightly said, it's very, very important that we have to realize that as manufacturers, what is the right stuff we're using inside the cell, how are they packaged together, and BMS is finally going to be the one that makes the difference. We cannot have sloppy BMSs. That is just a no-no. I think it's high time we just walked away from these and said that this is not going to work. You need to have very fine, trust me, temperature is not the problem. The problem is, voltage rise. And voltage rise is a direct impact, as far as BMS is concerned. I'm sorry for the long answer, but I've tried to look at it various ways, and I believe that I think we are on the right track. New regulations are coming in. Sometimes I feel it might be knee-jerk. Maybe we're entering into the domain of design versus trying to say what they should cater to, not the how. I would personally want people like us who've done 10 years of R&D on just an electric drivetrain, right, including batteries, know a little bit, perhaps more, to be able to say this is how I would do it and how this would be better. What is important? So I think as long as we're given enough time, I think the industry wants batteries to be nice and secure. I'm sorry for the long answer. Sorry.
No, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing that perspective, Dr. Sharan. I think very important points out there that you made. And of course, your 10 years R&D, that's gone in also shows up in that. Sticking on the same segment of three-wheelers, right? Sort of you've been selling three-wheelers as well, and again, being used for cargo applications. And, assume large part of those being in the heat of Delhi in the summer months, right? But perhaps you haven't encountered any such issues so far. So, what have been some of the learnings that have gone in that have, gone towards making your vehicles potentially safer or more apt for use?
Hello. Hi. I'm Saurav Kumar. I'm founder and CEO of Euler Motors. So we are in the electric commercial space. So we've been building the three-wheeler cargo as our first product. And as much as I remember, in the 4 years, I think majority of our time has went into building a safer battery pack. First battery, and one of the reason was when you start a company, you don't want to build everything. You want to figure out who who are the suppliers that can help you along the journey? And while we were doing that assessment, one of the things that we understood was between ICE and EV, your battery pack was one big component, not just from a bill of material perspective, but also it impacts your performance, safety, every aspect of what a vehicle is. And we try to look for battery pack manufacturers in India that could give us a battery pack that could meet your standards, let's just say in the Delhi summer condition, or even in rain situation when you're Gurgaon or Okhla subways, where some of them are underwater and your vehicle goes through it, it should sustain that IP67 ratings of water ingress and everything. So I'll come back to your fire question. So fire is not just because of the temperature rise and not the weather, but it's within the cell. But it can also be short circuit, which could happen because of your water ingress or humidity and any of that reason, right? So we were looking for that, and we couldn't find, when we started in 2017, someone focused on automotive grade and building a sort of a thermally sort of controlled battery pack. So we decided to build it ourselves. And along the journey, there were multiple things that came to us from a safety point of view. One was because your overload conditions and the potholes and everything, there is a high degree of vibrations on the battery pack. So it means structurally your battery pack has to be well made, because let's just say if you're putting multiple of these cells and one of the bus bar disconnects because of that jerk, or even it tends to disconnect, high amount of current is going to pass through that. It will lead to situations where your heat goes up, cell goes boom. Second thing was from your temperature, not from temperature in terms of yes, Delhi is, let's just say it went to 45, 48, your battery packs internally became at 58 degrees. That's usually what we had seen. Your BMS can easily cut that off, and I don't think you will get into a situation where there will be thermal runaway. Usually thermal runaway happened because we did something wrong with either your major active elements, which are, let's just say, your negative and positive terminals where your high currents are coming out, or it was, let's just say, your some electronics that went into short circuit or something, and that led to a high amount of heat, and that eventually went and killed the cell. So that was the second. So you had to then go and design the inside of the battery pack in a way that your most heated components are well placed away from the cell. So those were the second sort of our learning. And third was just the cooling, that in case some of these things happen, how do you, let's just say, cool, but those were also were there from the performance and some of those other region. But just making sure that even if there are these scenarios where temperatures are rising, can you make sure that you're still well within that 30, 40, 50 degrees, and you have enough time to recover from that bad incident? It could be your BMS cutting off the currents and everything, right? So in general, if you fundamentally design the battery pack from first principles, like what are the things that will go bad, and making sure you have enough provision, whether it's from vibration, from electrical, from mechanical, all of these points, I think you can pretty much fix a problem. Like, and we have not seen any production related issues, but while development, yes, lots of issues like.
Understood, right. So I think, yeah, a very valid point that, if you've been able to choose the right one and then ensure conformity of production is there. And, with that, I'll move across to you, Shresh, because we were talking about the three-wheeler form factor. Now, you're looking at the two-wheeler form factor, and some fire incidences have also come in. I think, not saying that the number, is skewed. It may be also a function of the number of two-wheeler companies that are out there as against three-wheeler companies. But, two-wheeler inherently, because of, say, the form factor, the styling requirements, and maybe the more zippy drive that the customer is looking for, does it complicate matters a little bit more? And also maybe difficult to plug in a liquid cooling system, for instance. So your perspective on that, and what have you been doing right so far that's kept these at bay?
So yeah, first of all, good afternoon to everyone. I'm Shresh. I'm one of the co-founders of Simple Energy. And definitely in two-wheeler domain, when we talk about two-wheeler, you have a specific size segment that you cannot build a vehicle bigger than that, right? And you have this cost constraint also. So with styling and everything, the performance-oriented vehicle that are being run on the vehicle on the road, definitely that is a constraint. But apart from that, that brings an engineering challenge to the team that you have to fit in a battery pack which is able to perform in all the conditions, because in India the temperature ranges from -5 to 50 degrees Celsius. The gradient is different, and no matter what the government says only 2 people are allowed on the vehicle, but practically we have seen 3 and 4 people also riding the vehicle. So all those things have to be taken into consideration while designing the battery packs. And definitely, as everybody rightly said, that nobody manufactures the cell in India. You get the cells from outside, but how you put those cells together to build the battery pack is where the secret sauce lies, where the safety parameters, performance, everything plays an important role. So that is what we have been doing. We have been working extensively on building battery packs and testing them in all the possible conditions, doing all the simulations, NVH simulations, and how the batteries perform over a period of XYZ years, because you're talking about batteries that will be used for at least a 5-year period. So the durability, reliability, all those things play a very important role. At the same time, when the temperature is rising, you have to have the right kind of algorithms built into the BMS or the scooter or the vehicle to make sure that the temperature is controlled without hampering the performance or the experience of the consumer, because you're talking about substituting IC engine vehicles. So you want to give the consumer the same kind of, or in fact, a better experience in terms of the vehicle that you're providing him or her. So all those parameters have to be taken into consideration. That is what we have been doing. So when we talk about our product specifically, it's a high performance scooter. So that also places a lot of challenges in terms of the engineering, but we have been able to successfully solve those challenges, and we will be starting the production of the scooters very soon, and you will see that building according to the Indian conditions would definitely help you get the right product out.
Sure, thanks, Shresh, for that. So now coming to you, Amit, because your problem is, I think, more complex, because now you're getting everyone's products and you need to sell them. So one, you don't know which has been foolproof to what extent. Second, I think also during servicing it becomes equally important, depending on what is the waterproof rating, for example. So if you're doing the washing, as simple as the washing of that vehicle, it becomes important to keep that in mind. Then also, throughout the life cycle, those products keep coming to you. So what has been your experience? And the second related question to that, now with, say, more stringent regulations coming in, do you think this is also going to be a comfort factor for, say, the financiers to some extent, that now, okay, there's something more coming in, so maybe it's safer, and you see the propensity of their lending becoming more? So sort of two questions to you on that. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Ashim. And my name is Amit Das. I'm the founder and CEO of Electric One. And Electric One is into retail of two-wheelers in a franchise model. We are in 100 plus cities and 95 plus stores across India. And I say vice versa, 95 plus cities and 100 plus stores span India. And we are selling multiple products. So my question first to audience will be, how many of you have driven a motorcycle or a scooter in your life cycle, in your life so far? Raise your hands. And how many of you have driven a electric two-wheeler? So I think this is the answer. So we need to know our vehicle before we ride. Okay, and this has been a major cause of concern when we look into retail standard practices across our stores. Consumer don't know what to buy and seller don't know what to sell. Okay, so first awareness has to be from the user perspective. That is the first point of concern for us when we talk about somebody comes up and says, I need 200 kilometers. Okay, and we say, why you need 200 kilometers? Because you'll be driving close to 50 kilometers a day. That is the first point of concern. Second, I think from a battery perspective, the way the batteries are being charged and the facility to make it chargeable, is also also needs to be introspected a bit. Example, when you expose your iPhone in the sun for a while, it will give an alert message that don't charge it right away. I think similar charging alerts should come also on the mobile phone while you charge, particularly when the charging ecosystem is not so fast charging. It has to be an alert based to an user that your battery is charged, don't overcharge it. Or there has to be cut-off mechanism. I'm talking not from your perspective, but from the larger perspective of unorganized market in the retail sector and the battery specifications and lots of players coming up, being assemblers in the market. I think for us, it's very important to choose the right OEMs, but every OEM claims to be doing something good. But this experimentation has to stop somewhere, and this regulation in terms of battery standard can help a lot when we think about energy as a service, as one of the modalities going forward as a way. Because when you buy a scooter or a petrol engine, you don't get a gallon of petrol and you get a scooter. So when you buy a electric scooter or electric motorcycle, if energy can be given as a service, and that includes the battery has to be working for a longer period of time, that ensures there should be stability of battery and stability of charging. I think this is one of the ways to get more structured battery usage and safe batteries in future. Also for a user, it's a convenience that, okay, my battery is going to last for 3 years. There are many companies who gives a warranty of 3 years, but I don't know whether these companies will last for next 3 years or not. Okay, this is again an irony in the market. I'm not talking about the ironies. I'm also talking about opportunities now. I think retail is going strong. There have been lots of EVs on the road. The consumer have gained confidence in terms of riding an EV now. Particularly young generation of guys who don't want to pollute environment a lot and they want to use a clean mode of mobility. And particularly housewives also are now getting more empowered to drive something. And the ease of convenience of able to charge your battery at home and not going to a petrol pump is a huge factor in tier 3, tier 4 cities. Though it's only 2-3 kilometers, and for us 2-3 kilometers in metros is just a neighborhood, but for them it's somewhere they have to plan their day to charge or fill the petrol going forward to 3-4 kilometers. So that's where I think this EV is going to play a major role, that you charge your things at home. And I was actually, my dad asked me, will you give me an EV to drive? And I told him, just wait for 1 year, because I need to be more confident giving an EV to you. And lately I gave an EV, and he's happy. So I think from our perspective, we all need to be responsible in terms of what we are selling, and OEMs here from a larger perspective to meet the end needs. And also to be able to make this vehicle run each day from all angles, from logistics angle where Saurav is sitting to simple energy, which is high performance vehicle. We need to ensure that this vehicle is running on the road continuously and continuously. Because if your car gets struck somewhere, you feel hazy. And when we talk about spare part reaching to a store 15 days after he has bought, it creates huge, I'll say, not so good feeling in the consumer's mind. So these are few factors which ranges from range anxiety to right charging ecosystem to spare part availability and intent to serve from the OEMs, which I think will play a major role in adoption going forward.
And now also for the financing, you feel with this coming in, it'll be sort of
I
maybe
think
the financiers will have more confidence.
yeah, I think financiers should be more bold now. They are shying away from financing, in tier 3, tier 4 cities. And what I think IoT devices or other devices to be able to track, and putting a better ecosystem of being able to, do a collection, which in raw term, when you don't pay your EMIs, you are able to collect your vehicles back, and the banking system has to come up. NBFCs are offering so much high interest, 17% reducing, 16% reducing, it's humongous. And they're treating vehicle as a commodity, which is a TV or, other things. So I think this mindset has to change from banking perspective, wherein government is putting lots of pressure on my dear friends on the standard rules, homologation, and other things. I think this you should press strongly on the finance needs, and banking should come up boldly. They lose lots of money with people who go out of India. So what's the problem of promoting EVs? And that's where I think this is important.
Sure. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Amit, for that. Now, moving on to another related question, and maybe Dr. Sharan, Saurabh, Shresht, you can all respond to that. Is now you may be able to make something which is very safe. You may also be able to identify something that's very safe. But now let's face it, our volumes in India are not that high. Right? So maybe we are trying to buy cells from somebody, and maybe we are buying about 20, 30,000 cells a year. But that person is selling 3, 4, 5 million cells. Right? So that company is really not going to customize something for you. They're going to say, this is available, take it or leave it. Or if you want something, it's exorbitantly priced. Right? So that creates a bit of a challenge, right, in supply chain. So what has been your experience in being able to tide over that? And that may not just be cells, it may be other parts as well, which all contribute to a safety, performance, all of that.
Right. I think maybe that's why it took us this long to get here. We were not willing to compromise on safety, performance, quality. I think that's what Altigreen has stood for. It's not like we've not had teething problems. We've had a lot of problems, but it has taken us 10 years in the EV business to finally come up with vehicles that we started selling in 2021. And even then, the supply chain has been very difficult. I mean, it's almost like you started with North ki kahavat hai, sar mudaya ole pade. So you got into it, and then suddenly, supply chain was a big issue, semiconductors are a big issue, COVID happened and all that. So you're absolutely right. And this is not just about cells. It is not about, I can give you examples of, for example, even as part of mechanical systems, a suspension, a brake, there are category A vendors and then there are category C vendors, right? And so when you start by building a vehicle and you say that, well, we're going to probably sell 50 a month, you get most of the category C vendors, right? And then they want to scale with you, and you also want to scale with them. But what happens is that you ask them to make 200 of those, and then quality starts suffering, right? We have been fortunate that we got funding. We raised money in March. And when you have money in the bank, I think category A vendors also start looking at you differently. Ki haan, paisa hai, to they will scale. So it has been a little bit of an advantage, but it's always going to be the case. I won't put the blame on any other country. It happens in India also. They can't customize something for a small volume. That's the nature of the business. So what really happens is that the price does increase. And so you can either do two things. You can either compromise on quality, or you buy a high-priced product and then look for the right kind of financing. And you brought up the right topic. I think government doesn't intervene in financing. Commercial banks still haven't entered financing. I mean, think about it, man, three-wheeler. Just think about diesel three-wheelers, right? A person buys a diesel three-wheeler or thereabout for about 3.5 lakh rupees. Look at a showroom of a diesel three-wheeler, right? It's a glorified, single shutter, warehouse. 3.5 lakh rupees is how much you pay for a Alto. Think of the experience you get when you enter one of these showrooms, air conditioned, welcome drink on arrival. They'll ask you, sir, kaun sa color lenge, or kya financing hogi, all that. Same 3.5 lakh rupees, right? Something's got to change. And I think that's the thing we are trying to say. Financing will make that change. That Alto is bought at 6 to 7 to 8%. This one at 24%. 24%. Can you imagine? And this guy is driving that vehicle for his livelihood. That guy is driving it for comfort. बहुत skewed है boss, बहुत skewed. So it is high time that commercial banks, and I think you raised the right thing. Electric vehicles, now you can tap into it, you can switch them off, you can, just make it happen, right? So it's not like they become NPAs and people run with it and, dump it somewhere and all that. It doesn't happen now. So I think it's a slow progression, but I think we're getting there.
Sure. Saurabh or Shresht, anything you want to add on the supply chain bit?
So, supply chain is a constraint that everybody is facing across the globe, not just Indian companies. It's companies across the globe that have been facing this. And when you talk,
Sorry to interrupt, not the constraint, but I'm saying you being able to source things when your volumes are very low and customize something.
Yes, that is where I was coming about. So that's the thing. And when you talk about the volumes, it's comparatively very small in the Indian market. So you have to strategically choose the vendors as well, that who you want to work with, and make your platforms modular. For example, when we talk about BMS, you have to see what are the components that are available in the market which you can source, so that your production does not get hindered. So that is how the strategy should be. And apart from that, optimizing the volumes and having the right market idea that what is the demand that would be coming up, that would help. And modularization is the key that we have been working on. So that helps us in keeping the components that are available, help us in taking it to production and taking it to a mass scale. So that has been our strategy till now.
All right. Saurabh, anything to add from your side?
The way I see this whole thing, like, scaling up and challenges, I think Euler is not new to it. We had that same issue, I think, for the first 3 years, we made 200 three-wheelers. That's it. Like, those so banaya tha, and that took us like 3 years, and a lot of component was borrowed steel, not steel part, but like actually taking it from aftermarket sort of component. Same issues, tier ones, and some of them would not want to talk to you for teens. Those of banaoge, like nobody wants to talk to you, right? So what was important, I think the way we did it, this problem we got through it was tweaking our business model a bit. We said, instead of selling those 200 where we still don't have a tier one vendor, tier one SOPs and everything, we're going to just rent it, learn from it, and we'd still make money. We'll still learn how to stabilize our systems and everything. Let's not just sell it. Let's just rent it, lease it to some of these customers. We did that, and we said we'll do it till we have enough demand to, let's just say, and confidence on the product to sell. So, like, for instance, we started in 2017 end, and then until 2021 end, we were not selling the vehicle. This year, January, we started selling. And at that point, we had enough sort of demand. We could see few thousand of vehicle that we had to deliver to our customer. Then suddenly, you can also project like this few thousand will get to tens of thousands. And then you had interest from some of the tier ones. You also had interest from capital, some of the, so you were talking about that 21% sort of this thing, vehicle financing. I remember talking to some of these in 2018. It was like almost we ended up down payment was 40%, even that what we wanted to finance, because the financer was like, they don't understand what lithium ion, they knew lead acid. They don't know what is like this lithium ion vehicle, so we can't. So we actually, in the entire like 200, we've only got 5 financed, and rest 195 was like all Euler money in. So I think it's definitely capital is a moat in this market. There's no denial about that whole thing, that you will need. Once you have capital, it brings in a lot of comfort. It doesn't solve all of your problem. I think as entrepreneurs, we are obviously like, we are trying to figure out, that's the way we figured out, like one way we could get to a demand, we could get, and then suddenly some capital vendors and all of that falls in. The other thing about the vendors on the sell side and safety, and I think some of that, right? Yeah, my belief is there is no silver bullet to this solution. Like you can pick any cell that you want. Every cell will have some positives and negative, like some, especially if you're talking about in playing in a commercial vehicle segment where price is very, very important. You have to be very, very careful on like which cells can you put because of your cost. And then those cells will have different thermal runaway temperatures, safe. So basically safety, energy density, whether it's weight density, cost. These are like 4 or 5 matters on which you pick something. Now, depending on what you have picked, you will design your mechanical, thermal, all of that system around it. So yeah, I don't think like you can pick like one of the best and then you say, "Ki ye best hai. I don't have to now do thermal. We don't have to do." So you have to, and testing is very, very important. Like the reason why I said for 3 years we didn't sell, it is not that even if we had a tier one, we ourselves were not sure about the whole product. So there are scenarios in which we have tested the battery packs at 80 degrees centigrade inside like thermal chambers that we got built. And like once it was stable there, that's when we said, okay, this is stable enough to go on road, because yes, it is at 45, 48 outside, but like there could be scenario, there's fire in your road vehicle. Is it adding to the fire? Is it what is happening? We also wanted to know. So safety was the other reason. Like we tested it well enough. So even if you got tier ones, like I think for the longest time, we were fortunate to have one of the tier one vendor to provide us with the cell, global tier one vendor. And that is BD. Like you pitch, even for the factory, we had to pitch to the landlord why you should give us this space. Because he was concerned, kal ko 2 saal ke baad you go bankrupt, like I'll have to find another guy to run this factory to. So we had to pitch all along the way. So yeah.
No, I think it's very good examples there that you've given, and sticking on say the cell point, and especially in the commercial segment, which what you and Altigreen are doing on this panel, please. So, do you think this whole thing about cell, regulations becoming more stringent, then they being the issue still around from where you source the cells, at what price point, what quality, all of that being there, do you think this would give a strong push towards battery swapping in the commercial segment, where it also makes sense because it's operating in a loop, and so swapping is actually possible, and we are seeing good use cases of that in the country also. Maybe not specifically for you yourself thinking about it, but in general, do you think the three-wheeler segment, this could be a big catalyst towards battery swapping now?
I can answer. Yeah.
Could add.
Yeah, though there are two different points you're making. One was from the standards that are coming in, right? Like standards, I think battery standards around safety, all of that are great. I think the only point that we felt bit strongly about is the time that if you're putting something in the draft, you are saying OEMs, this is the new standard. Tell us like what is it that you want from that, like from safety point of view. Let us implement that in the ways that we think is the most important, because we are spending a lot of time and not all use cases are same, whether it's two-wheeler, three-wheeler, four-wheeler. Different use cases, different temperatures, different sort of things makes the technology viable at the cost that you're trying to sell your product at. So stringent standard will definitely push to safety. I think the implementation, I think as long as the spirit is correct, I think there is no harm over there. It's great for the industry. Timing and some of that needs to be worked out, and obviously details of it. The second point around your swapping, right? So see the way, and this is again, this is now getting into a zone where it's a personal view, right? So when I think of swapping, I think swapping would work really well when your battery packs and things are very, very standard. So in a theoretical world, if all OEMs agree to a certain sort of battery standards, and there are people who would do the swappings of it, and so the financial liabilities, all of that gets solved. For the customer, it's easier to buy because you're buying things without the battery pack, which is like buying that scooter without the petrol tank and everything, right? So from all of that, it does make sense. But when you start thinking it about the actuality of the situation, where in our situation where a three-wheeler guy, he's already He has to deliver like, let's just say 10, 15 orders. He's already getting late. He's stuck in traffic. And if you add one more complexity to for him कि अच्छा ये 50-60 किलोमीटर के बाद एक और आपको swap करना है, suddenly it just like adds bit of uneasiness for him. So this is like purely from a customer point of view. Technology and other sort of point of view, we believe that for smaller form factor, let's just say a two-wheeler or a smaller three-wheeler, let's just say a passenger kind of a use case, or you go to buses where you have like robotic sort of way of lifting. Those are the ways where we have certain viewpoint that it might work. But for a three-wheeler cargo in some of this, like we believe, like because of the energy density, weight of the battery pack, number of swaps that you need to do, the weight of the batteries that needs to be lifted during the swap, all of that will make it a bit more complicated. And at the end of the day, like I do think like, why were you doing swapping? I mean, when I think of that, the reason you were doing swapping is because in the form factor of vehicle that you are putting the battery, you were either not getting enough range, so it was not packaging enough dense energy कि आप range मिल रहा था, or second, it was costly, and third is usually the weight. All of that is getting solved as you're going forward and forward. Your price is coming down, your energy density is improving. So same amount of space that you have in a battery or for a battery pack will give you longer range. The cost is, so why fight a technology curve? So those are my fundamental things that like when you're building a business, you should never fight a technology curve. It's like up एक time पे जब phone था, then you had these मतलब my Nokia phones में batteries would go like finish for and then I used to have like another battery would charge and then you could swap. And I was just thinking about that analogy. Over a period of time, your batteries improved, phone batteries, and like the energy retention improved, charging standard. So similar way, that is, those are the things that I believe that automotive companies, you're not building it for next 3 years, 5 years. You're thinking about next 10 years, 20 years, 40 years. So personally, that is my view, and hence like Euler don't have, there are like 10, 15 other reasons, but just like on a very, very high level, why I'm like, we have a viewpoint on that.
Sure, Dr. Sharan, your views.
I think Saurav's covered it really, really well. I think there are certain formats that make sense as far as swapping is concerned. It's not a universal truth. I also know that PLI scheme for battery cell manufacturing has started in this country. Cell prices will fall. Without taking names, some very, very big guys are now going to be producing cells, and they're so competitively priced. They're going to be so competitively priced that I think we will soon see a time when you and I will probably say कि यार 5 और डाल दो यार, क्या मतलब it's marginal cost. This is my feel, and hence I do believe that this is temporary. And like Saurav really said that I think it will be limited only to certain use cases. Two-wheelers is one of them. I don't know if I would call it swapping versus portability. So I've always maintained that the big thing we need to fight as far as swapping is concerned is the ownership problem. I think it's very, very important in our geography that ownership is well established. When you don't have ownership, people will not take good care of something. I'm a proud Indian, so don't take me wrong on it, but this is a reality. You can make batteries portable, which means that you should be able to take out the battery pack, charge it at your home, and then come back. You should not have to take your scooter to a charging place, for example, even if I were to look at a small this thing. I mean, there were ads of this guy taking his scooter, Ather scooter, to his kitchen and charging it there because they were not allowing him to charge in the basement. That should not happen. So I want portability of batteries. Swapping is a business, and I think that is based on different formats, and some will be successful, some will be not.
Sure, Dr. Sharan. So moving on to you, Shresht. So now, we heard about how so much R&D goes into some vehicles to make them safer, and I'm sure, your case isn't as different. But then all of that also adds to the price of the vehicle, and hence, the price at which it's available for the customer, right? As to the cost of the vehicle, and hence the price at which it's available to the customer, right? And I'll bring that across to Amit also later on. But now they're saying when you're making things more stringent, it also means some manufacturers would not be able to meet it, and hence would have to shut shop, right? So on the one hand, it could be said that there is, an evolving ecosystem, a nascent ecosystem. So some people are shutting shops, so it's not probably good, and all of that, talk is there. But on the other hand, given that how we always used to say that now IC engine is not everybody's cup of tea, but anyone can make an EV because you just need to put 3 things, 4 things together, and that's what so many people jumped onto it and started making it, right? But I think now these things, some of the incidents that have happened and some of the regulations that are coming in are not going to make it as simple as that, right? Do you think somewhere this is the right thing that is happening? Because if the R&D is going in, the effort is going in, and maybe the capital that you raise should also probably go in towards improving the design, and that's how it should be. Or do you think that if there are only fewer players left, probably we won't see enough innovation happen, as some people say, or we won't see the ecosystem develop as much, or EV won't reach all the nooks and corners of the country, because still many two-wheelers also being sold, or say the e-rickshaws or the three-wheelers also be sold regionally. Like many players have a very regional play also. So what is your take on this?
See, when we talk about electric vehicle startups, so we have almost more than 600 companies registered as electric vehicle startups in India. So that's a problematic situation. Welcome, Kapil. So that's a problematic situation is what I see. That everybody wanted to make quick bucks, so that is what they did. They imported a product from a neighboring country, rebranded and sold it. That's a harsh reality. And that is why we have seen a lot of incidents, vehicles catching fire, because they were made for different use cases, different temperature conditions, and were not able to perform up to the mark in the Indian market. And also in addition to that, the education about the electric vehicles was also not there. So with these new standards coming in, definitely that would make the safety the topmost priority, and that should be the topmost priority. That you can make some money, but it should not be at the cost of somebody's life, because at the end of the day, you're talking about the machineries that are capable of hurting people and sometimes taking people's lives as well, which is very, very, very unfortunate. So it's not that the fewer the number of players, the innovation will go down. It will definitely be more competitive, because you will have the existing OEMs coming in and then the startups also doing the innovation part of it. It's not necessary that you need to have multiple players in the market to make sure that the innovation is happening. It's about the right product and according to right conditions, and testing across the country and the conditions that are there in the Indian market. And that is the only way that the market will sustain. And definitely some of the companies would have to shut the shops, because they're not serious about the product that they're selling in the market, which is defaming the complete electric vehicle segment and hurting people as well, in a physical or in emotional or economic way as well.
Understood. So yeah, clearly you're saying, quality comes at a price, and the ones who beat it, the ones stay, others don't. Yeah. But Amit, you're sort of closest to the market, and we've heard a lot of market-related points. Dr. Sharan made some of them, that ownership is needed, right? Shresht is making some of those around that. Quality is, yeah. I mean, it is definitely important, but it's the customer that you are meeting, because you're meeting customers for all brands out there. I mean, for a set of brands at least out there. Do you see all this is translating to those customers, or what is typically going on that side? Do you see people saying, no, we're looking at quality first, or they're just looking at, okay, which is the cheapest here, or they're just looking which looks the fanciest here? How is all this moving on the retail end, since you are doing that day in and day out?
So I think we meet customers of all the brands, not only what we sell. Because the customers from other brands come to our stores and say, sir, shocker nahi mil raha hai, ye charger nahi mil raha hai. So we meet all the customers actually okay. on a daily basis. I think more important for us also to understand why there is a low speed, high speed segmentation. In Europe, there's I think, correct me if I'm wrong, up to 45 kilometers what you treat as mid speed, and it needs to be registered. When ICAT is putting a clause कि यार 250 watt का motor होना चाहिए और speed 25 होना चाहिए, and then you unlock the vehicle at 40. I mean, mixer grinder also has 500 watt motors nowadays. Usha, how can a scooter have 250? So these all things should translate to a mid-speed segment coming up. Low speed should go out completely. The mid-speed segment up to 45 kilometer, make registration mandatory, maybe free of cost. That will also help finance, so that they are able to track registered vehicles. I was speaking to a Singapore-based company, and they told that they have developed a beautiful scooter and hybrid motorcycle kind of model, and they will be able to retail to India at $8,000. I told him the art is not about creating $8,000 product. Art is how you make this 8,000 product sellable at $3,000 in India. At a scale what India wants. That's the second perspective, which I feel many companies are just putting up things to make their vehicle stronger, look good from the outside. But if you're exposed to sun after 6, 7, 8 months, the plastic fades away completely in some of the models. And that erodes the confidence of a consumer over in the electric vehicle segment completely. So I think more or less less number of players. I think that players will definitely reduce a lot, in the coming days. And when you speak about quality and after sales support, that's one of the major crux. Nobody now cares about the brand of the product in the mass segment. To be honest with you, they care about, sir, आप डीलर हो, आप स्पेयर पार्ट दे पाओगे नहीं दे पाओगे, आफ्टर 1 year of warranty will you be able to give me plastic parts or not, will you be able to give me a warranty on my battery for 3 years. These are very strong questions which comes from consumer's mindset, and this consumer is looking forward to save his money. He's not looking forward to get his scooter on the road and showcase to somebody. Showcasing के लिए simple energy है, it's a strong product in the youth segment. When I go to youth market, because a student generally takes his parents money to buy a scooter, and he needs a jazzy scooter like Pulsar or Apache or Royal Enfields of the world. For him it's his dad's money. For a service class, from 25 to 45 years, it's about his own money which he pays out. So he needs a stable scooter, somebody which some brand which will be able to serve his daily needs and provide him spare parts day in day out. So these are few observations which we have from the market. For us, it's very important to standardize batteries also, because we are in multi-brand and so many different specs of each and every company. We feel there should be one battery company which should provide us all the cater to all the needs of all the makes. So I think this standardization of battery will be a good boost for us if it comes up lately. And I think I see market evolving more or less a product-driven market than a dealer-driven market. Because if your product is stronger, you sell in, for example, Sony sells in Chroma, Sony sells in Sony stores, and it's a product. So I think it has to be more stronger product. Okay, and the idea of D2C for me, direct to customer, also needs more introspection, maybe in further sessions, which we can discuss. But touch and feel is what a consumer needs. Fancier looking vehicles are good, but there are benchmarking and references in the market. Ye mat lena. This is looking good. It will not get spare part. So these are few observations which you get from the market on the India out.
Thank you.
Just to add to it, I believe people are willing to pay that premium to get the right product. It's about the quality, reliability, and durability of the product. If it's matching the expectations, people are willing to pay 10, 20, 30% premium as well. That is what we see in the smartphone segment as well. People are buying phone worth 1.5 lakh rupees, right? And then when it comes to a product that is their daily commute need, then people would definitely be willing to pay a premium of 10, 20, whatever percentage it is. So that is also an observation that I see.
Sure, thanks, Resh. Especially I think in your segment where you're making it, a very aspirational product. So certainly you're comparing with the right smartphone, this thing there. So Kapil, you just joined, so I think no problem. We've moved a bit in the discussion, but I think you've been one who's helped at least us also in consulting answer that question when many people used to ask. Everybody's making scooters, nobody's thinking of motorcycles, and there's a huge market out there in ICE for motorcycles, and there comes torque. So we said no, there's one. See, already thinking about it. So we discussed a lot of things around batteries and fires and all of that before you came in. So question to you was, what has been your experience in sort of keeping your products kind of fireproof, and also on the supply chain side, if you've done anything. We've heard the perspective from everyone. I also like to hear from you as well on that. Yeah, if you could. Yeah, I think that mic's not on.
So first of all, thank you. I think two perspectives on batteries. So for two-wheelers, motorcycle, you need more power. So you're almost trying to make equivalent product. So when you say this, you need energy-dense batteries. So I can't go to LFP, let's say. So I need NMC or let's say above that. So probability of fire is not going to be zero. And it is also not zero in ICE vehicles. There might be accidents, there might be cases, there might be a lot of other external things as design. अगर आपने कुछ design किया है उसके बाहर की चीज़ है जो आप नहीं control कर सकते. So there's not going to be probability zero, but let's say it should be 10x lower than ICE vehicles. That is what you should aim for. And how do you aim for this is, I think it starts from design and manufacturing reliability, and then let's say proper service, a lot of data to answer those. So it's not a answer that says, oh, I just solve manufacturing, it is answered. No. So I think for batteries, it is going to be from design to service to data analytics. So there's a lot that we have to do as a manufacturer. So the answer is not simple. Definitely now it comes to a fact. Now the topic has arisen that everybody is talking about batteries. पहले कोई पूछ ही नहीं रहा था. Now the good point is all the hard work that you're asking me, how much hard work have you done? So that's a good thing. So we've done a lot of hard work to get the vehicle to a level that it will not turn into a fireball. And that does not come from bringing some product from somewhere. You'll have to design that in India. So IP67 amendment 2 aaya hai. Now it talks about IP67 and lot. So I think we are already ready. It is as per our design model. And coming back to your question, why two-wheelers? Why is not everybody making a motorcycle? I think that's good. They're not making one, and we are making one. It's
That wasn't a question, but just a comment that you finally we have a motorcycle out there. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I think luckily I think we are only one of the few who have launched, delivered in Pune, and that's happening. So good space to be in right now, but I don't think it is going to be a blue ocean for long.
Sure. Thank you, Kapil. I think with that we just have time for maybe 2 audience questions. If any of you have any questions, if you raise your hand and ask, we could have those. Somebody at the front.
Hello everyone. I'm Niranjan. I'm from Total Energies. So the conversation was really interesting. So I had a question for the bikes, electric bikes. When you say you have higher energy density batteries, and whenever you say bikes,
transitions which we all have to go through. We are now digital
with say electric motor heating up, or maybe you need a reducer, or maybe not, and even with the batteries. So do you think you would be using some sort of coolants for e-motors, reducers, or do you think you would be moving on to immersive cooling soon in batteries?
So when we started, I think we already knew that the power that we require to do this is, let's say, 9 kilowatt from the battery pack. So there's a design to it. So there is a single speed reducer in the motorcycle already. The power requirement at, let's say, 100 kilometers per hour is going to be, let's say, 8.5 kilowatt. So the batteries are designed for that. So the design, so once you write down the SOR, sort of, कि मुझे ये चाहिए, customer को क्या चाहिए, मतलब from my perspective, when we started 100 kilometers per hour, 100 kilometers range, and let's say 100,000 rupees. 100,000 rupees is the hardest problem to solve. First two are the most difficult ones. Simple ones, the last one. So I think the first two are engineering problems.
Of time, we will have to
Sorry?
contributions and insight. Just opening it up in case anybody has any queries.
We're hearing a crosstalk from the other room. You can go ahead.
So as per design, I think first two problems can be solved. Last is scale problem. So if I scale enough, I think 100,000 rupees is possible. So if I've answered your question right.
Electric motors.
You should, I refrain from using a lot of exterior components for cooling right now, because air cooled makes a lot more reliable.
And you have not faced much issues with heating with electric motors?
In three-wheelers, so we also provide three-wheeler powertrains.
Yeah.
We have not faced any issues there.
Okay.
And on two-wheelers also, I think we have sold about 250. No customer has come back to us yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there's one more question there at the front. Yes, please go ahead. Yeah, please go ahead.
Sorry. Hi. So my question is around some of the sales models that have evolved, specifically in the EV space now. I mean, there is of course the traditional dealership model. I mean, one of our panelists here has come out with a very innovative idea of the multi-brand retail for EVs. And of course, now there is a radical model that's been implemented by some of the two-wheeler EV companies, wherein there is the dealership or there is no tangible interface, and it's a direct-to-customer model that they've been following. So just some views on which of these models, or if there is some sort of a hybrid model evolving coming out of this.
So I'll
Thank you.
give you a very small answer. Both work. But if you ask me what is my liking, I think there should be a dealer. A dealer makes the RTO and a lot of that life simpler. So you can then focus on making an R&D company. Otherwise, you're technically solving an operational challenge. It is not that hard to solve it, but I think India is a continent. It is not a country. So थोड़ा सा एक SOP लिख के आप पैन इंडिया नहीं कर सकते इंडिया में, थोड़ा मुश्किल है, but unsolvable नहीं है.
So I'll answer also. I think direct to customer needs lots of readiness for a OEM to be ready with the spare parts, and supply after sales and all. So that means you are restricted to a particular audience. Example, Talk must have sold 250 vehicles, and across India have sold, or you have sold only Pune. That makes his task easier. When you sell product in Ladakh and in other places, and direct to customer D2C model may have certain limitations till the time the company or the company is supporting after sales evolve, to a certain period of time. Second, I think from dealership perspective, buying is a more family affair. When the family goes, they enjoy this feeling of touch and feel, look and feel, lights. They discuss with their friends. Lots of references happening. And that consumer behavior, I feel, will not change very drastically in the next few years. Because there are few moments to cherish, particularly after Corona. So they will not restrain from seeing the houses. So I think dealership model will be there for sure.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. I think we have one last question if we could take there.
Hi, good afternoon all. I am Piyush Hazari. I am the product manager in Bosch. And I have a question for Mr. Amit. So basically, the question is regarding, you have brought up very good perspective, which currently we are missing. What does the user want? Because as now today, because of the fame, the products are being pushed. And as mentioned in the panel, that is because it has created so-called EV unsecure, because they have just sold it. Basically a businessman thing, you buy something, sell, and that's all. So the question is, what is the user wanting? So when they buy a EV, now we currently, this financial will soar around 600,000 high speeds, so to score. So what does the user need? Is he buying today because it is cheaper? Because we see this loss of the mass vehicle which you're selling, they were selling because it is cheaper than EV, the existing IC. That's why the trigger is to buy. Or is he buying because it is fancier? So where does we should focus? So what happens is, now if I have to take a target to make a product, should we try to buy, is the cost which is driving, or as it was also mentioned, they are also okay to pay higher price for that matter? How do you say it will take off?
I should charge you for this. I should charge you for this important piece of information. There are a mix of many parameters actually, to be honest with you. One of the important parameters for consumer is a new breed of consumers who want to experiment in India. This class of people who want to experiment are the first adopters of EV. They can be anybody. They can be a student. They can be outliners. They can be somebody who is environment conscious. Somebody who wants to save money. A number of things. But particularly, I think not being able to register a vehicle, not wearing helmet in the low speed segment. 80%, 70% of the population in Eastern UP, I'll say, or Telangana or Kakinadas of the world, they enjoy this feeling of driving a scooter without getting into regulation process. That feeling of stealing something, and doing something different. Particularly, yes, also price parameter when scooter you get at 65 to 75,000 rupees and you charge 2 units, it will give you 60-kilometer range compared to 100 rupees and 60 kilometer is also one of the major parameter. I think price comes later now at this point of time for a buyer. It's more about that breed of guy who want to drive EV, and being able to differentiate himself in the system drives more usage. When we build more reliable products, that's where the price and the consumer life cycle will come in play. I got a vehicle recently for a test drive, 15,000 kilometer. I was very happy. Some EV scooter has driven 15,000 kilometers. The manufacturer and the consumer should be awarded. Because reliability is what we need to focus now. If you are able to build reliable product, consumer will think of how many years he'll be able to manage it. Whether after replacement of batteries you'll be able to get his vehicle running or not. And all those things will come in play. Right now it's more about being experimentative and buying an EV. This is my perspective, but I think others can throw some more light on it.
See, Dekhi, there's a fundamental flaw in that question. I believe that on a long-term basis, you can't force your customer to buy anything. Like when you say that the product is being pushed to the customer, I don't think customers are dumb. There could be like fewer percentages where you could a great salesman offer financing, all of that, you can still push to a certain extent, but to a large extent, customer will make that choice, whether to buy a product or not. If he has to buy or she has to buy, depending on what segment, if you're in a commercial vehicle segment, then it's mostly about the performance, efficiency, cost of ownership. Those are the things that takes precedent over everything else. If it's in your private vehicle, let's just say a two-wheeler, four-wheeler, passenger, then a lot of things around safety, comfort, a lot of those, even like the ability to show off and different, all of that, right? Like all of that takes precedent. So when you're thinking about design, right, like kiske liye kya banana hai, I think again, if you're thinking for, let's just say a commercial vehicle segment, then it has to be for that high uptime, maximum fatigue, or the abuse condition, all of that. But if you're doing it for the private vehicle sort of customer, there I think it has to be more thought from, like obviously the abuse and some of that factor of safeties will be, you can have it bit lesser if you want, you can have more margin. So those are the things that in our at least decision, that's how we think through those matrices when we are thinking about what to offer, what to cut down, and what is good to have, what is must for our customers.
Just very quickly on that. So sort of nothing against what you said. I think I agree with that. The only difference is perhaps between, when you say B2B or commercial vehicle segment, when the moment you talk about B2C, which means a person buying a commercial vehicle by himself, like a driver come owner, I think then all these things again start taking precedence, which is, is it comfortable? Will it last me long enough? Does it have all the bells and whistles? You'll be surprised, we've spoken to about 1,600 three-wheeler drivers, and some of the kind of things they talk about is कि इस design को मैं अपने गांव ले जा सकता हूँ. People will feel good if I go there, then I will feel good about taking this. Otherwise, I don't take a three-wheeler to this thing because, I would much rather take a Tata Ace, for example, right? So I think they have very strong notions about these things. To answer your question, I think there are a lot of people, all kinds of ideas, designs, but everyone is looking for that. Just statistically speaking, you'll be surprised. 1923, can you guys guess how many ICE engine OEMs existed in the US? 1923. 1,800. This is Google's data. 1,800 OEMs. 1923, doing something with ICE engines, right? So, we haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg as far as EVs are concerned. In China, I think it's 175,000 businesses related to EVs. Long way to go. Lots of use cases that we haven't even thought about are going to be there. Everyone's going to be selling a vehicle. All those vehicles will be good. I think we will start seeing use case based vehicles. So under 25 kilometers will be a certain thing. There'll be all kinds of things happening. I think we're looking at it too much under the microscope at this point. I think there's a lot that's going to happen. So thanks. Yeah.
All right, with that, I think we'd like to thank all the panelists for sharing a wealth of information, and I'm sure the audience also benefit from that. And thank you all also for being an excellent audience. Thank you very much, everyone.